Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patrons, Stefane M and Ricky. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. The news won't pick up on this, but I think it's an important crossover. We have Casey Blaine, who used to work at the National Transportation Safety Board. She was there over 4 years, and now she works at Tesla as a senior counsel for regulatory matters. I think this type of experience from the NTSB, which oftentimes is involved in these investigations of autopilot or FSD, now working at Tesla as counsel, it's certainly not a bad thing for Tesla going forward. Periodically, Fox News has been putting out positive news stories about Tesla, and one of the reporters has dubbed himself the Cyber Guy Report. This time around, they were touting the Tesla Semi's impressive performance on ice going down a steep hill. However, the video they used was actually from February earlier this year from the California Highway Patrol. So yes, the Tesla Semi handled that well, but this report is not something new. Years later, Elon is still trying to get that funding secured settlement overturned, where he has to have some of his Tesla tweets or posts reviewed before he posts them. Today, the US Supreme Court declined to hear Elon's bid to overturn that ruling. Elon has tried to overturn this many times the past few years. It seems like the sticking point is the fact that originally at the settlement, Elon did agree to have his tweets reviewed before posting, and they're saying just because now Elon has changed his mind and is maybe regretting that decision, he can't get out of it. There are plenty of updates set to roll out to the Cybertruck, including off-road mode, overland mode, and Baja mode. And here's a quick screenshot of the user interface of some of these upcoming changes. As many people have desired, you'll now have the ability to choose locking differentials options. Trail assist will maintain a set cruising speed so you can focus on steering. Better traction control, the adaptive suspension will now estimate payload more accurately. And with Cyber Tent mode, it will level the suspension so you can sleep comfortably on a flat surface in your Cyber Tent. Just in case you're parked on a hill, it'll level it out. The lights, air conditioning, and all of the outlets will stay on if enabled in this setting. On X, Joseph said, how about maps remembering satellite view setting, high beam staying on auto mode, rear turning up to 10 degrees of steer? To that, Wes, a Cybertruck engineer, said, I think 1 to 3 are covered in the spring release, which is already deployed to wave 1 and should be going wide after that group of installs is verified. Number 4, however, got no attention, which was any lane keeping autopilot or FSD. So when it comes to ADAS on the Cybertruck, mum's the word. The Top Gear guys did a YouTube video of some of these early Cybertruck features, and they're sticklers for copyright, but here's what they said. I came into this really skeptical about the Cybertruck. I just thought it's going to be one of those triumphs of design and desire over everything else, and yet I've come away from this really impressed by it. A few months ago, it was all about the way the car looked and the celebrity of it, and I did not want one. But now, getting out here, getting away from all of that, and getting under the skin and seeing what it can do, I want one. We've been saying for a long time, it's not just the Cybertruck design that makes it special, but everything going on inside. So it's great to see channels like Top Gear pushing the Cybertruck to its limits and walking away very impressed. Tesla Europe and Middle East posted about Euro Summer, where the Cybertruck will be making its rounds. They're calling it Cyber Odyssey, and here are the different locations. In the comments, that official Tesla account said more details on Tuesday. Late last year, we were told that Tesla is building a Dojo data center in Austin.
By doing a vertical integration of the data center, we could extract new levels of efficiency. We could optimize power delivery, cooling, and as well as system management across the whole data center stack.
We knew that we had to re-examine every aspect of the data center infrastructure in order to support our unprecedented power and cooling density. We brought in a fully custom designed CDU to support Dojo's dense cooling requirements. And the amazing part is we're able to do this at a fraction of the cost versus buying off the shelf and modifying it. And since our Dojo cabinet integrates enough power and cooling to match an entire row of standard IT racks, we need to carefully design our cabinet and infrastructure together.
Dojo is a very big computer and actually will use a lot of power and needs a lot of cooling.
Now, with that context that Dojo does require major cooling efforts, here's what Joe Tetmeyer had to say.
Also, some of the mainstream media have been trying to say that this is a data center or related to Dojo or some sort of a bunker for the computers, and that is the farthest thing from the truth. Looking at the Travis County permit site, I was able to find these two permits, and this is for the south extension, and it is a cooling tower structural platform.
So if any of you out there know why these cooling towers that are currently being built at Giga Texas are definitely not for Dojo, please fill us all in below. As we've been talking about, Elon seems laser focused on Tesla, and he just made a surprise visit to Beijing to meet with the premier to talk about rolling out FSD in China. A quick pro tip, when there are over 76 articles talking about one story, some of those articles will have more data and facts than the others. In just a few seconds, looking at these tags for each article right here, I can find the sources with high factuality, saving myself time. I can actually see all of the sources that lean left politically as well as lean right, and those that are in the center, thanks to Ground News, the sponsor of this video. Many of you have reached out letting me know how much you appreciate finding Ground News, as the ability to see the political leaning of each source can really help cut through the noise in today's media landscape. You can also create custom For You pages, as I have one that's just for Elon and Tesla news. In an election year like this one, I think having a tool like Ground News is critical to cut through all of the media bias to actually understand what's really going on. Each day, I'll check on the blind spot tool to see what stories are being underreported on the left and underreported on the right. Back to the Elon in China story, you can actually see that 12% of those sources were government owned, and 7% of that is actually the government of Russia. Now, we don't have time to dive into that right now, but you can go to ground.news/electrified linked below and subscribe for as little as $1 per month. You can also get 40% off unlimited access to the Vantage subscription, which is what I use. The link is below and the QR code is right on the screen. After Elon's flurry of meetings with top officials in Beijing, China's government signaled its blessing for Tesla to roll out FSD in China. Chinese officials told Tesla Beijing has tentatively approved the company's plan to launch FSD. Tesla will deploy FSD based on mapping and navigation functions provided by Baidu. Tesla's partnership with Baidu helped it to clear a major regulatory hurdle. They said working with a Chinese company helps ease regulators' concerns over any data security risks. Elon arrived in Beijing on Sunday, and as of earlier today, he's already left the country. Now, there is one storyline right now that I think is going overlooked. Chinese officials have not responded to Elon's request for approval to transfer data that Tesla cars collect in China to the United States to help train the FSD neural nets. This could be a significant sticking point, as to date, China has been very clear about wanting Tesla to keep all of its data that it collects actually in China. That's why Tesla had to set up its own data center in China a few years back. Tesla would still have to go through China's stringent approval process for data cross-border transfer. Additionally though, the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers said Tesla's Model 3 and Y had passed its tests and were compliant with China's data security requirements. The government-backed industry group checked how vehicles process facial recognition data they collect using cameras outside the cars, as well as real-time data of drivers and passengers. That clearance may pave the way for local authorities to loosen restrictions on where Tesla's cars can go in China. Earlier today, Elon also met with Robin Zhang, chairman of CATL. This after we learned last month CATL was in talks with Tesla and other automakers to license its battery technology. On X, Elon said, "Honored to meet with Premier Li Chung. We have known each other now many years since early Shanghai days." As a little preamble, late last week, Tesla did launch enhanced autopilot subscriptions in China for $100 per month. So maybe Elon saying FSD may be possible very soon in China is actually going to come to fruition. Just basic math, there's about 1.7 million Teslas on the roads in China. If Tesla were to charge $100 per month for FSD, that would be roughly $2 billion in revenue for Tesla per year, if of course 100% of the people subscribed. But using a more realistic take rate of about 30%, that's still over $600 million of high margin revenue for Tesla. When it comes to the Model 3 and Y both passing their data security requirements, that made Tesla the only foreign funded enterprise to meet the compliance requirements. Tesla passed in part because they anonymize the external facial information, they don't collect cabin data by default, they process cabin data within the vehicle, and they provide clear notifications when processing personal info. Call me naive, but if there's an automaker that I would trust with my data, it would indeed be Tesla. And don't forget, the way Elon has navigated Tesla's relations with China the past few years have really paved the way for what's happening now. Add in the fact that the Chinese leaders have immense respect for Elon and Tesla, and that's making all of this possible. Tesla has been getting special treatment from the Chinese government now for years, and a large part of that is thanks to the way that Elon has handled things. On the Tesla and Baidu deal, foreign companies selling smart cars in China are required to use one of about 20 approved local suppliers of mapping and navigation systems. Naturally, it's fun to think about potential revenues and profits from FSD entering this new market, the largest EV auto market in the world, but don't sleep on the ability here for Tesla to further differentiate its vehicles in that market where the consumer places a high priority on tech-forward vehicles. We've been saying now for months that all of these Chinese knockoff versions of their FSD are going to fall well short of Tesla's performance of the true FSD. Now, it appears likely that Tesla is going to have a chance to actually prove that sometime here in the next few months. Hopefully in the Chinese market, Tesla can set proper consumer expectations for the software, but as we've seen version 12 do in the United States, it's already converting skeptics like Fred Lambert from Electric. He recently said he was not the biggest fan of FSD, but he's been impressed with V12 so far. My point, this could go a long way for Tesla, not just in more revenues and profits, but to actually sell more Tesla vehicles in China and to further increase this halo effect around the Tesla brand. Be careful with this next bit as it's from this account that I cannot vouch for. But he shared this communication as if it was something from Tesla, and it said, "You're invited to participate in our FSD beta feature internal testing, which will start on April 30th. Again, I would place this as a rumor for now, but there's a chance that Tesla starts some internal beta testing of FSD in China as soon as tomorrow, the 30th. But grounding us here a bit, it looks like Tesla's approval is in principle from the Chinese government officials for now. Tesla has been granted the approval under certain conditions. And just so you know, this Tesla partnership with Baidu will certainly have some new components, but Tesla has been using Baidu for its in-car mapping and navigation since 2020. This is certainly a major moment for Tesla, but we definitely need more information about if Tesla will have the ability to send all of this training data back to its systems in the United States to actually continue to improve the FSD system. Having all of that data from China, where they have more cyclists and more pedestrians, could go a long way in actually improving the system from a global perspective. And if Tesla can't send all of that training data back to the United States, does that mean they have to set up another data center in China with H100s and Dojo to actually train the system? Simultaneously, we had Elon saying yesterday Tesla will spend around $10 billion this year in combined training and inference AI, the latter being primarily in car. Any company not spending at this level and doing so efficiently cannot compete. Knowing that, keep in mind what Chamath just said on the All In pod.
And we've mentioned this before. I've tried to talk a lot about this with Jonathan Ross from Grok, but AI is really two markets, training and inference. And inference is going to be 100 times bigger than training. And NVIDIA is really good at training and very miscast at inference. The problem is that right now we need to see a CapEx build cycle for inference.
On the Q1 call, Elon made it a point to emphasize that Tesla's AI inference efficiency is vastly better than any other company. There's no company even close to the inference efficiency of Tesla. That inference compute is the chip on Tesla vehicles, hardware 3, hardware 4, and Elon said hardware 5 is pretty much designed and should be in cars. hopefully toward the end of next year. Here's a quick rundown of what this may mean. Tesla is spending $10 billion this year for combined training and inference AI. They already spent $1 billion on AI infrastructure capex in Q1, which means there could be another $9 billion spent in the final 3 quarters of this year. Right now, Tesla has 35,000 H100 equivalents active for training, and they plan to exit 2024 with around 85,000. If you assume the average cost of an H100 chip is around $40,000, that's $2 billion of spend to get Tesla from 35 to 85,000. Holmar said that Dojo's current compute capacity is 7,500 H100s, which would mean $300 million that Tesla does not have to spend with NVIDIA. Now, obviously, Tesla has costs involved with Dojo, but you get the point. So if Dojo has the compute equivalent of 7,500 H100s and Tesla has a total H100 equivalent of 35,000, that means Dojo is currently making up 21.4% of Tesla's training capacity. And honestly, if you would have asked me last week where I thought this number would be for Dojo, I would have guessed around 10%. So if you take that $9 billion Tesla has yet to spend for the rest of this year, subtract $2 billion to get them from 35,000 to 85,000 H100 equivalents, that leaves about $7 billion in AI capex for this year, which would be enough for 175,000 H100s, which would then be in addition to Tesla exiting 2024 with 85,000. I'm not at all predicting I think the rest of that spend is going to totally go to H100s, I'm just laying out some different scenarios. This would be Tesla doubling its compute again by the end of this year, and then doubling it again throughout 2025 from a much higher base. But I would imagine a portion of that spend will be for Hardware 5 to finish the design and then ultimately to enter it into production. I did post earlier today on X about hoping everybody learned their lessons with everything that's happened the past few weeks. Honestly though, this was not nearly as much about Tesla's stock movement as it is what's going on at Tesla the company. If you can't look around right now and see all of the developments with FSD in global markets, with Tesla saving $1 billion a year after the layoffs, with Tesla now deciding to spend multiples on AI infrastructure more than they have in the past, to me it's pretty obvious where all of this is headed over the next 2 to 3 years. Sure, there's going to be some unknowns and bumps along the way, but the picture is pretty clear right now. For some context, Tesla's entire annual capital expenditures have only been between $5 and $10 billion for the past few years. Over the past decade, Tesla has proven itself as a hyper-efficient deployer of capital, so given that Tesla is now deciding to spend this much on AI infrastructure, should tell us everything we need to know. They're already seeing significant returns on investment with more compute, with more data, with more vehicles having FSD. And in case you missed it last week, Tesla was demoing FSD to the Swedish Transport Administration in Germany, aka the first time FSD was used on European roads. A rep from the transport agency said impressive, smooth, and natural driving. In Europe, there are still questions about these new DCAS regulations. They won't go into effect until November, and they still don't address the key issue of system-initiated maneuvers, meaning Tesla's FSD could be nerfed to some degree across Europe unless things change as they stand now. But a good step one in getting those regulators to change their minds would be allowing them to experience version 12. Replying to Holmar's, Elon did say, "We believe version 12 is ready for supervised FSD in left-hand drive countries. Right-hand drive will take a bit longer." As you can see from this map, most of the world in green actually operates in left-hand drive markets. Ray for Tesla said the co-founder and vice chair of Xiaomi actually traveled to the United States just to test Tesla's FSD12. The TLDR, he said he was very impressed. On X, Zach said his 2019 Model 3 with ultrasonic sensors got the new Autopark and visualizations with FSD version 12.3.6. So yes, .6 is rolling out to customers, but as Elon said last week, these 3 releases are minor updates. The big one will be 12.4. NHTSA has opened an investigation into Ford's Blue Cruise after 2 fatal crashes involving Mach-E's. The NTSB, as we talked about earlier, also opened a separate investigation into those Mach-E's. An initial investigation confirmed Blue Cruise was engaged immediately prior to the collision in the Philadelphia crash. Both of these fatal incidents were at nighttime lighting conditions. Also last week, in case you missed it, NHTSA opened a probe into Tesla's autopilot to determine if Tesla's recall actually made enough changes to ensure drivers are paying attention. This after receiving reports of 20 accidents involving cars that had the new autopilot software updates after Tesla's recall. Honda has started deliveries of its first all-EV, the Prologue. It starts at $47.4 thousand and it does qualify for the $7,500 credit. Last week, Cathie Wood was talking about autonomy and said it's a winner takes most market. Elon quote posted saying, as Cathie said, Tesla is the biggest AI project on Earth. Cathie said it well. At a time when many companies are bowing to short-term oriented shareholders who are demanding profits, dividends, and share repurchases now, Tesla's increased investment in the largest AI project on Earth is separating it from the auto and tech packs. As a reminder, because this has been telegraphed for years and one day it's going to be here, Cathie said while Tesla's gross margins are likely to increase from 15 to 16% now to 25 to 35% as EVs gain share, its robotaxi margins should be software as a service like in the 70 to 85% range. BYD's net income for Q1 was $631 million. Tesla's non-GAAP net income for Q1 was $1.5 billion. Polestar just released a fast charging demo with its upcoming Polestar 5 using StoreDots, a Polestar partner's unique silicon-based cells. They charged the battery pack from 10 to 80% in exactly 10 minutes. But this was the first time a complete battery pack has been tested in a fully functioning car without showing the eventual power reduction typically seen during charging. We did not add anything new outside the battery pack. It still had the original cooling pump and fan. What they're saying is with StoreDots silicon cells, they're not seeing a charging curve like we've seen in all other packs. What's interesting about StoreDots silicon cells is the charge speed does not change throughout the charging process. So whether you stop to recharge at 10% or 60%, you'll achieve the same speeds, which were in excess of 350 kilowatts. They said, we typically have a development cycle of 2 to 3 years, so I'd say we could put this into production within that time period. As with all battery promises, we need to be extra cautious, but certainly something to keep an eye on. It's a bit stale now, but Ford did lose $1.3 billion for the quarter from its Model E division. That means Model E lost close to $130,000 per vehicle on the roughly 10,000 EVs it sold. Gavin Newsom put out a press release saying for every 5 gas stations in California, there's now 1 electric vehicle fast charging station. From S3 Partners, Tesla short sellers have now lost $5.5 billion in the past 4 sessions. As we've said now for years, when it comes to Tesla stock, oftentimes it feels like nothing happens for years and then everything happens all at once. Things can happen very quickly. You probably heard Ron Barron call the Tesla stock bottom last week. Elon responded to a post about that saying Ron's a very smart man with an outstanding track record for a long time. It's wise to listen to anyone who fits that description. Tesla stock closed the day at $194.05, up 15.3%, while the Nasdaq was up 0.35%. It was a ridiculously high volume day for Tesla stock, trading around 140 million shares above the average volume the past 30 days. Tesla is now up about 40% over the past 8 days. At this point, I think it's important to hear, don't ever get too low when things are going bad, and don't ever get too high when things are going well. Things can turn at any time, and Tesla still has to earn the financials and the earnings per share that the market is now pricing in. Don't forget, check out Ground News linked below if you're interested. Take advantage of that discount. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.